Imagine coming home after 3 years, only to find steel chains across your own driveway, a giant sign saying private property, and some HOA Karen screaming that you're trespassing on land your great-grandfather built with his bare hands. That's exactly what happened to me, Biggie. Mistake on her part, because she had no idea I owned the entire valley. I never thought I'd see the day when someone would have the audacity to chain shop my own driveway and tell me I was trespassing on my family's land. But here we are. This was, without a doubt, the worst decision of her life. I'd been gone for 3 years, working myself to the bone, and when I finally came back to my valley, my sanctuary, to breathe the crisp pine air I'd have been dreaming about, what I found instead was a slap in the face. Heavy steel chains across the mountain road my great-grandfather built in 1923. A bright, smug-looking private community sign glared at me like it owned the place. And as if that wasn't enough, something even worse hit me. 8 massive, multi-million-dollar mansions that sprouted up in my pristine valley like weeds choking a garden. For a moment, I thought I was in the wrong place. But no, the crunch of gravel under my boots was familiar. The same sound I'd heard as a boy running these trails. Yet instead of feeling like home, the valley smelled of expensive chemical fertilizer and someone's overpowering designer perfume, drowning out the scent of pine and wildflowers. That's when I saw her. She climbed out of a white Range Rover like she was stepping onto a stage. Platinum blonde bob sharp enough to cut glass, designer hiking outfit, clipboard in hand like a weapon, attitude dripping off her like oil. The HOA queen herself. Well, she sneered, her lips curling in a smile that could freeze lava. The hermit returns. This is private property, now you're trespassing. I kept my voice level. Ma'am, that's my cabin up there. My family's owned this land since 1923. Her smile widened, all teeth. Not anymore, it isn't. But here is what this self-appointed mountain monarch didn't know. I didn't just own that old log cabin. I owned the mineral rights under every one of her precious mansions. Name's Declan Forrester. Deck to everyone who's not trying to sue me. I'm 48, built like a guy who spent decades working rigs from Texas to North Dakota. My hands are permanently stained black from oil. My back has been screaming at me since I was 40. But hard work has a way of shaping you, and it paid for the bills when life came swinging. My great-grandfather homesteaded this valley in 1923. 320 acres of untouched Colorado wilderness. He carved a life out of nothing. Built a log cabin by hand, tough enough to outlast blizzards, droughts, and 100 mountain storms. That cabin isn't just wood and nails. It's our family's legacy. The place where 3 generations of foresters learned that nobody owes you a thing. Out here, self-reliance isn't a motto. It's survival. But life has a way of tearing you from the things you love. When my mom got Alzheimer's, I sent every paycheck to the best memory care facility I could find in Denver. I worked North Dakota as fracking fields through winters that froze your lungs, just to make sure she could live with dignity while she forgot my name. The taste of petroleum still haunts my morning coffee, a bitter reminder of what I sacrificed. The cabin sat empty for years. While I worked and waited, Mom passed away 6 months ago. Peaceful. Free at last. With funeral arrangements settled, I thought I'd come home, breathe the mountain air, and remember who I was. I should have known it wouldn't be that simple. The valley I returned to looked like a luxury magazine had vomited on my childhood, where wildflower meadows used to stretch. Manicured lawns glistened like plastic carpets. The sweet scent of mountain air had been murdered by fertilizer and perfume. 8 glass and steel monstrosities now dominated the ridges, each one more grotesque than the last, and ruling over them like some suburban dictator was Vivian Ashworth. HOA Karen. Imagine your worst nightmare of an HOA president. Now give her a Dallas real estate license, enough money to buy a small country, and an ego the size of Mount Elbert. Vivian was 54, her blonde bob a helmet of control, and her smile the kind that calculates your net worth while pretending to ask about your day. Word around town was she'd swooped in through a shell company, snapped up land faster than a card shark with a marked deck, then crowned herself Queen of Pine Ridge Estates. After our roadside showdown, she handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside, 47 violation notices from my cabin, which had stood here decades before she was even born. Non-compliant roof color, my great-grandfather's cedar shingles, weathered silver by a century of storms, didn't match their architectural palette. Unauthorized outbuildings. You mean the 1920s root cellar that kept my family alive during the Great Depression? Landscaping violations. Apparently God's wildflowers aren't on her approved plant list. The grand total, $73,500, plus $500 per day until I complied. But what burned me most wasn't the dollar signs. It was her tone. The subtle digs about certain types of people. The wrinkled nose when mountain wind carried the scent of sweat and work clothes. She'd never lifted a finger of real labor in her manicured life, yet somehow I was the neighborhood cancer threatening her property values. They gave me 30 days. 30 days to comply with rules I'd never agreed to, from an organization I'd never joined, over land my family had owned since before her parents were born. That night I drove my old F-250 to the county courthouse, diesel coughing like an old smoker. Helene Carpenter, the clerk who'd been there since Carter was president, was locking up. "Deck Forrester," she said, smiling sadly. "Welcome home, honey. I'm so sorry about your mama." After thanking her, I asked about the HOA filings. Her face shifted from friendly to funeral serious. "A lot of politics around that development," she said. "Things got rushed through faster than a greased pig at the county fair." The HOA covenant documents read like a dictator. I sweat dream page after page of legal jargon, giving Vivian control over everything from mailbox colors to how often you could have guests. But guess what wasn't there? My signature. Knowledge nugget. In Colorado, HOA covenants require unanimous consent from all affected property owners to be binding. Just because your neighbors sign doesn't mean you're automatically trapped. Always verify your property is actually included. Driving home under a sky full of stars clearer than my legal situation. One question burned in my mind. How does a brand new HOA claim authority over a century-old homestead they can legally touch? I didn't know it yet, but my family had left me something even more valuable than that old cabin. A week later, I was sipping coffee on my porch when expensive tires crunched my gravel drive. 3 vehicles rolled up like a suburban invasion force. Viv's Range Rover led the parade, followed by 2 BMW SUVs, filled with people dressed like they were on safari rather than a mountain road. Designer boots so clean they'd never seen real dirt. Clipboards clutched like rifles. "Morning, Mr. Forrester," Viv sang with fake sweetness. "We're here for your mandatory architectural compliance inspection." I didn't budge from my chair. "That's strange," I said. "I don't recall sending out invitations." She waved papers like a magic wand. Section 4.7 of the community bylaws grants us full authority to inspect all properties for covenant compliance. Her committee started clicking away with their cameras my cabin, my truck, my woodpile. Probably my morning stubble if they could zoom in far enough. "Ma'am," I said, standing slow, "this is private property. You weren't invited, and you don't have permission to turn my home into your personal photo shoot." Her smile sharpened. "Actually, we do. Section 4.7 clearly states." "Section 4.7 of covenants I never signed." I cut her off. "Documents that don't apply to property that was never legally included. Now, I'm asking you politely, once to get off my land." Her face went lobster-red. She herded her committee back to their SUVs, rolling down her window for one last threat. "You'll regret this attitude, Mr. Forrester. We have ways of dealing with troublemakers." The next morning, my mailbox looked like a paper bomb had exploded. 14 violation notices. My great-grandfather's outhouse violated modern setbacks. My truck was on T, aesthetically compliant. My wildflowers weren't on their approved list. They fined me for a splitting mall and a stack of firewood. But then I saw something that made me smile for the first time all week. The metadata on their photos showed timestamps from 3 days before their inspection. They'd been trespassing, photographing my home like wannabe spies. Time for my counterpunch. I went to the local Radio Shackies. They still exist out here and bought 6 trail cameras with night vision, motion detection, and audio recording. Colorado's a one-party consent state, and this is my land. Every word they said here was mine to keep. Within 48 hours, I struck gold. My cameras caught Viv and her cronies creeping around my property at dawn, plotting like some budget villain squad. Clear audio of Viv saying, "The more violations we stack up, the faster we can pressure him into selling." Another committee member suggested fabricating environmental complaints. Viv purred, "Brilliant. Emergency contamination concerns always get immediate response." Knowledge nugget. Photographing private property from public areas is usually legal, but trespassing to gather evidence, criminal. Trail cameras are worth their weight in gold when fighting HOA bullies. I could have called the sheriff right then. Lawyered up, gone nuclear. But 25 years on oil rigs teaches you patience. Viv was playing checkers. I was playing chess. Right on schedule. My phone rang. Deck, it's Earl Dawkins from County Health. Got a complaint about septic violations at your place. Regulations say I gotta investigate. Earl, come on up, I said. Bring your full kit. Document everything. 3 hours later, Earl shook his head. Son, your septic system's cleaner than most brand new installs. Whoever filed this complaint was either ignorant or lying. I handed him a USB stick with highlights from my trail cameras. You might find this interesting, especially the part where they discuss filing false reports. As his county truck disappeared down the trail, I poured another coffee and watched storm clouds gather over the valley. The air smelled like rain and incoming justice. 2 days later, the rumble of county trucks echoed up my driveway again. But this time they brought a news crew, hazmat suits, inspectors, cameras rolling like they were filming a disaster movie. I could see her before the cameras did. Viv, platinum hair gleaming, whispering to a reporter. She'd orchestrated the whole thing to publicly humiliate me, but she'd underestimated one thing. I walked up, smiled politely, and showed the reporter my evidence. Viv's face went white, then red, then purple, as the reporter asked, "Are you saying you have documented evidence of the complainant trespassing and filing false reports?" Meanwhile, the inspectors found nothing. My septic system wasn't HOA compliant. It exceeded standards. My cabin's foundation could survive an earthquake. And then I dropped the hammer. Gentlemen, if you're interested in real environmental violations, you might want to test the runoff from those new mansions down the valley. Knowledge nugget. False reports to government agencies are a federal crime. Document everything. File Freedom of Information requests. Turn their weapons back on them. By the time the news crew packed up, the story had flipped. Instead of local hermit polluting pristine mountain, it became HOA president accused of harassment and false reports. Viv thought she was playing hardball. She didn't realize the game had just changed, and I held all the cards.